it's Fight Club Hubs.
Rolento 13.
And welcome back to a new episode of Videogame Adaptations. Still working on the name. So, I got a new partner. What's up, homie?
What's going on, man?
It's been a while.
Yes, it has. Been a while since GVN Radio Live.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's been some time.
However, what brings us together now is a movie that's not quite near and dear to our hearts. Last time I saw this was about 15 years ago. That movie is Street Fighter Alpha. And since we are both fighting game guys, this seemed like the perfect movie for us to kick things off with video game adaptations.
Oh yeah. Especially with the 30th anniversary of Street Fighter. I play that game like religiously. And yeah, I haven't seen this movie in quite some time, although I do own it. Mm-hmm. This might be a painful sit-through.
Yep, so without further ado, let's kick it.
A few moments later.
So that happened.
It's just as bad as I remember it.
Oh,
man. Okay. There was so much wrong with this film on both a adaptation level and just as a movie as a whole. But we're going to talk about it as a movie first. So, quick synopsis, spoiler alert. Main plot of this movie is Ryu is struggling with the Dark Hado. So for the first half of the film, you see him going in and out of struggling with the Dark Hado. The MacGuffin is introduced in the form of Shun, who claims to be Ryu's little brother. Everything's fine and dandy. There's a little bit of bonding going on being in the film. Chun-Li is introduced into the film via investigating a Dr. Sadler of Shadaloo. And that doesn't really pick up or go anywhere until halfway through the film when there's a tournament being held inside a random building, which Ken is really in Japan for, not just to wish his former master's well on his anniversary of his death or something. They don't exactly explain what's going on. Mm-hmm.
Apparently it's not important.
Yeah, at the tournament, Shun enters anonymously and surprises Ryu, fights the Zangief, has the upper hand, but then Zangief beats the shit out of him. Ryu interrupts. Dr. Sadler is viewing and has his OP android interrupt. Makes Ryu succumb to the Dark Hado. Destroys the android and half the building. Shun is taken, and after Ryu realizes what has happened, he recovers, says he's going to go talk to Akuma to find out what the hell's going on. And Akuma's just like, piss off.
Basically.
Then he decides, you know what, let's go save Shun. But they enter a tournament, another tournament being held in the middle of nowhere in a desert, by Dr. Sadler. And Ken, Ryu, and Chun-Li go there to rescue Shun and to bring Sadler to justice or some bullshit. They don't say, really. And we see a bunch of Street Fighter Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 characters. Birdie, Guy, Dhalsim, Rolento, Adon. Yeah, and we see them for like 30 seconds. In fact, I think Adon, in terms of all secondary characters, has the most screen time out of everyone.
Pretty much.
Yes, it's nice. I'm a Birdie guy. Okay, so the tournament's going well. Ken, Ryu, and Chun-Li snoop around, find Birdie connected to, that contraption that you saw throughout the 90s where people were getting their life forces sucked out through pipes and crap, and they get interrupted again by another one of Sadler's OP androids, who then has Shun pop out of his chest and forces Ryu to use the Dark Hado on him, and then he absorbs all of it while he's being destroyed. Sadler absorbs all that data, becomes fake Akuma. So disappointing. Comes out, beats the crap out of Ryu, and then says, will my evil consume you, or will your evil consume me? Let's find out. Shoots a Hado, hits Ryu point blank range, and then Ryu's just like, okay, cool dog. And the dude just has his arms blown off, and he's like, okay. Sean's dying, says, I did it for the money. Sorry, homie.
That's legit what happened.
And then it just ends.
Yeah.
It just ends. Okay, let's talk about some of the good real quick as a movie. As an anime, you know, the character art was very well drawn, and when it was good.
I mean, it's no Street Fighter 2 the animated film, but for what it was,
Yeah,
it was pretty decent.
It represented the art style of the alpha characters rather nicely. I mean, they looked like they were supposed to. Chun-Li with the really stenciled in like eyebrows and stuff like that. The uniforms, Ken with his long ponytail and the whatever the hell you want to call those eyebrows.
Right.
I would have to say the artwork was nice. The animation, on the other hand, sucked balls.
The action scenes. Oh my goodness.
The other things I liked, and it's a shame that they weren't really that animated, was the backdrops, the sceneries that they took place throughout the film. Like, you saw the island that Akuma was on. It was very unique looking, you know, the little wooden statues and stuff like that all over the place. Really interesting. What do you what did you like about it?
Like I said, the art style in general was very close to the Alpha art styles that were throughout the series, which I love the Alpha series. I didn't have an issue with the way the characters were designed. They didn't redesign anybody oddly. Backdrops were nice. Some of the fights, parts of them were cool, but it just felt like they were trying to zoom in too hard to make it look more cinematic, and it's just half the time you didn't know what was going on because it wasn't choreographed well. That's where it really started falling apart for me. That's where it started. But other than that, the art was fine. Other than people being a little too large at times.
Or the weird like, okay, the art was fine until they started to do these weird angle shots. And there's two types of shots they have: up nose shots and Chun-Li crotch shots.
Yep. Need to do a counter for that.
We didn't do a counter for that. There was a lot of Chun-Li crotch shots.
Sure was.
If somebody was talking, they put them in the background, and Chun-Li's crotch was literally right there at the forefront. The other shot is the up nose shot, and it's always like the majority of it was on Ryu when he was like going through the Dark Kado phase, and it's always him like this, nostrils super flared, everything exaggerated. Suddenly he has a double chin, and he's just like constipated.
Whenever you're struggling with something, you always have a double chin. Note to self.
Yeah. Hell, even some of the angles they did for some of the fighters and their poses were like just weird. Like Akuma's poses, like when he just stood there for the first time and he's just like,
yeah,
like what?
But to be fair, Akuma's poses have been getting a little more strange as time has gone on. This might be where it started. I don't know.
The fight choreography, probably the biggest fumble was the music.
Oh, such a miss.
The music did not fit this movie at all. Half the time it sounded like it belonged in Record of Lotus War.
You would literally feel like people should be like in armor with swords and shields.
Preparing for battle.
Right. And they're in the middle of this really Japanese type of area. There's no flutes, no nothing. Like nothing that would be very Japanese centric to accent where they are. Yeah, that never happened. Not at all. And for me being a music guy, I'm like, where's the Japanese sound?
Okay, and like I was saying, okay, the plot. The first half of the movie started off well. It was just Ryu learning to struggle with the Dark Ado. Shun, the MacGuffin, comes in, and even though he was a MacGuffin, that I think he wouldn't have mattered if he didn't exist. Like, I think Ryu would have found some way to have ended up at Dr. Sadler's lab.
But at least at first it was doable. It was like, okay.
It was doable. Like, okay, this kid is building a bond with Ryu. It sounds very heartfelt. Him telling Ryu, oh, look, the sun is setting into the sea. All I see it doing is set into the sugarcane fields in Brazil.
From Brazil.
And of course, Ken giving him shit all the way up until that point. And then Ken, I think, was kind of along for the ride for a little bit.
A little bit.
And then he was just like, okay, you know what, I'm done.
We actually had to look up if there's sugarcane fields in Brazil because we're like...
I thought it was either jungle or city, to be honest.
Right. But they actually apparently do have sugarcane fields in Brazil. Apparently, that's one of their biggest industries. Note to self.
Yep.
The more you know.
Yeah. Do do do. Okay, so the film falls apart at the very middle when that tournament breaks out.
Oh my goodness.
So the synopsis in Street Fighter, the animated movie, was that Bison was recruiting fighters to become his mindless automatons or super soldiers. It's kind of sort of hinted at in Alpha 3 and Street Fighter 4. That's what he was doing. I mean, he recruited Balrog, Sagat, Vega. He tried to recruit Adon, and he got turned down. Those who did turn him down, he ended up killing. I think Adon is non-canon though. His ending, because it said he had to beat his man. He had to beat Sagat in order for that to happen.
Right.
But the thing that I have a problem with is Stadler has this, again, we're going back to the OP android. Mm-hmm. This dude was wrecking people.
Like, ridiculously. It wasn't even funny.
He was, like, absorbing hits like it was nobody's business. He took Ken's super shuriken to the face, snapped his jaw back into place, and then just grabbed him by the leg and smashed him. He picked up Chun-Li, super flexible Chun-Li, and wishboned her.
Yeah, for all you Dragon Ball fans, imagine Krillin going against Beerus. That's exactly what it looked like. Terrible fight.
It was like, and it wasn't the first time he died was because Ryu fired a point blank Dark Hado, which he carried by dodging the dude's fireballs left and right. He bobbed and weaved his way up and fired one point blank range at the robot. And then the second time, he's really beaten the shit out of Chun-Li, Ryu, and Birdie. Birdie didn't get enough love and respect. I mean, he got the most airtime out of all the secondary characters, but he got taken to town and then some.
But at least he wasn't fat.
At least he wasn't Rose.
Oh.
There's another point. That's the biggest misfire in this thing.
That's so
Rose.
bad.
Rose was in this film. 3 times she appears in the film, and all she did was offer riddles and clues.
Annoying.
She was trying to be a gypsy. Like, okay, what will your future be? Oh, okay, I'm being interrupted. Oh, who is this interloper? Will he be the something or another?
It's like, hey,
The
I
trump
know
card.
things are really bad for you, and you're on the verge of suicide. But figure out this riddle.
Yeah, the last thing she says is she interrupts Ryu as he's about to fire the last Dark Hado, as he's being consumed by Dr. Sadler's Hado, and says, "Ryu, you haven't turned the death card yet."
Apparently, they're playing Magic the Gathering. Whatever.
They're playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
Something. He hasn't activated his trap card.
He's like, "You fool! You just activated my trap card. Now it's a pure white Hadouken." Yeah. Suddenly, the Dark Hado turns, like, the game goes from Alpha to suddenly X-Men versus Street Fighter, and Ryu's Hado can take up the entire screen.
Yes. And apparently the android forgot to use push block. Because it just did
Guard
not
cancel.
happen.
He didn't guard cancel enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so the film falls apart, and, okay, by the way, MacGuffin Shun, at the very end of the film, was absorbed. We see his shell in Dr. Sadler's lab, in fields, like walking around, like zombified. But then he starts poking out of the chest of the OP android, number 2.
Makes no sense.
And he's like, look at me. And then he gets fireballed out of him and says, "I'm sorry, Ryu. I needed the money, sorry."
Deuces.
And
Terrible.
then, yeah, it's just wow.
It just misses so much
It was
after that. Once that tournament happens, everything is just a complete miss after that.
And it's not just the fact that the story just comes to a complete halt and makes no sense from that point on. I mean, like, how is Dr. Sadler absorbing all this energy? Anime logic. I mean, if you got tubes, you can absorb anything and, instantly know karate from a 20-year vet.
Because reasons. Yeah. Let's see.
Outside of that, there's really nothing else about this film I liked as a standalone film. Now, as a game adaptation. Okay, sit back, boys, as we talk about how this film took many liberties.
All right, well, let's start with one of the first things that happen in the film is that we get one still shot of Goken. And believe it or not, the artwork for the original idea of Goken came from the original Alpha series. If you have the 30th anniversary, they actually show you the first picture of Goken. And I remember seeing that between, I think it was in Alpha 1. If not, it was in Alpha 2.
Mm-hmm.
Between those two games, they designed the character design of Goken, but it didn't do much with it. But you do see one still shot in the very beginning opening of Goken.
That was pretty cool.
That was cool. I didn't know who he was when I first saw it, but now I'm like, oh, that's Goken. Okay, I know he is.
It was nice, and it was his artwork was pretty close to what we saw when Street Fighter 4 came out, which was pretty cool.
And Gotetsu was mentioned by Ryu because he's thinking about how Akuma killed Gotetsu, which was the master of.
By the way, I love the way they said Akuma.
Yeah, they said Akuma a lot better than they normally say.
Mm-hmm.
But Goken.
By the way, sorry about that. My cats are fighting in front of the tripod.
And believe it or not, this fight looks better than what we saw in the movie.
It is.
But Akuma and Goken were taught by Gotetsu. Mm-hmm. They all have Go names. If you look at the Japanese one, Akuma's name is Goki, whatever. Mm-hmm. But Gotetsu is mentioned. Cute. Then goes to Sakura. Sakura is represented pretty well.
Yeah.
When it comes to her lure in Street Fighter. She has a friend that's tagging along trying to catch up with her. She's trying to find Ryu. That's pretty much what it's like in the games.
By the way, I swear that chick following her is the same voice actress as Selena from the Sailor Moon TV series that we got.
Scary. If she really is, she probably has a wand somewhere, which is why she's tired all the time.
Moon and Prism power!
She's not used to running too much. Ken is very, very well represented. Shout outs to the Ken people out there. Shout out to Chris T. Mm-hmm. Ken is very well represented in this movie. Ken has more fights than Ryu. It's the only movie or only anything.
Ken, in my opinion, carried the film.
Right. This is the only film that Ken is goes from being a sub character to the main character.
And he wasn't the main character.
No, not at all.
Chun-Li is now... I would say Chun-Li and Ryu is where it begins to fall downhill with character representation and respect to the canon.
True. First thing is that when Chun-Li learns about this doctor, she's like, I wonder if my father's there. What?
It was already established, and they even mentioned it in Street Fighter Alpha 1, that her dad is dead. And she finds out later on, I think it was after Alpha 1, that Bison killed her dad. But she was hunting Bison down to arrest him because he was the leader of Shadow League.
Right.
And she managed, in her story, she captures Bison, but when she turns around to call for backup to arrest him and detain him, he wakes up and he wounds her really badly to the point where she wakes up in a hospital.
So why she's thinking her dad's on this island? Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody knows.
Who knows? But, yeah. Chun-Li's represented not the greatest. Ryu in the film starts to
fall apart halfway through.
Yeah, especially when you understand that their fighting style, which when we were coming up it was Shotoken, which isn't actually a real fighting style, but then they later on decided that it wasn't Shotoken, it was Ansatsuken. But whatever. Later you find out that, it's supposed to be a dumbed-down version of what it originally was.
A pacified version.
Right, because it's not supposed to be a killing style anymore, just something to stop someone from attacking you.
And Akuma is the one who mastered the fighting style to its purest form, becoming the raging demon that he is. Mm-hmm. Meaning that he got engulfed by the Dark Hado, and he's always searching for the next opponent that could potentially beat him.
Yep.
And that is the conflict in Ryu, is he's struggling with the Dark Hado. That is a good shout-out and a good, story point that they borrow from Street Fighter Alpha 2. Mm-hmm. But they throw out Ryu's character right out the window when it comes to, we're not fighting to kill. But then, near the end of the film, he kills 3 assassins right there. And he was not even under the influence of the Dark Hado at the time. No. He snaps 2 dudes' necks, and then he punches makes 3 blows inside this one dude to the point where you see them coming out of his back. That dude be dead.
That was terrible. It was like, so you don't kill anybody, so what's up with those guys on the ground there?
I think at the end of the film, and we're not going to count the people he probably killed when he was using the Dark Ado inside that building. He killed at least 4 people at the end of the film.
Yes.
4. And he's using the pacified version of his fighting style. Yeah, real good student
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
Making Goken proud.
Okay, in terms of representation, this story does not fit anywhere within the Street Fighter canon. Dr. Sadler doesn't exist.
No. Shun doesn't exist. None of those assassins exist.
All the other characters make brief cameos towards the end of the film.
There's no Gen, the one that taught Chun-Li how to fight
and
after
probably
her father died.
Yeah, the most important character in the Alpha series, Nash, is nowhere to be seen.
Ever.
He actually was Chun-Li's partner in Interpol at the early days. Adon, Rolento, Dan, and Dalsum all get like 30-second spots.
Oh, we forgot to mention Sodom with his crazy truck driving.
Okay, you want to talk? Okay. There was maybe, outside of Rose's 3 random cameos in the film that made absolutely no sense, they decided, you know what? Let's see if we can top that random dumbassery. The plane that everyone is flying in to land at Dr. Sadler's labs in the desert, and all of a sudden, Sodom shows up in a truck, decides to play chicken with the damn plane as it lands. And then he stands there and he's like, hey, let's do that again. Yo!
You know why, right? Because reasons. That's about as much sense as this film makes.
I thought he was trying to get the Mad Gear gang back together.
Hey.
And Guy was on the plane too.
He sure was.
Why didn't we see those two fighting?
They didn't even talk to each other.
They didn't even look at each other.
I know we fought each other before, but that's old news. I ain't got no beef with you.
Okay. Okay. So the MacGuffin Shun becomes the catalyst that allows Dr. Sadler to absorb data and become, Fox Akuma, and Ryu uses that as his point to finally become, pure, I guess, as you could say. He just snaps out of it. He's like, I'm evil. No, you know what? No, never mind. Yeah.
Not very well represented at all.
Okay, so let's see here. Okay, let's do a little checklist. Okay, so obligatory cameos, obviously, from multiple Street Fighter Alpha characters. Yep. Any music from the games? Did you hear any of that?
Not at all.
Nope. Did you see any locations from the games? I mean, could we really push Fighting in the Streets as something from Alpha?
If you want to count Sodom's truck being on the side of the road, I'll give you like half a point.
Okay, yeah, screw that. I don't think there's really anything else to checklist because they didn't really show any respect to the Street Fighter Alpha mythos. They didn't represent the characters well outside of Ryu and Sakura.
Ken was represented well. Other than that, that's it.
Wait, did I say Ken or did I say Ryu?
I said Sakura.
I said Sakura. I thought I said.
Okay. We'll say Ken was the best representative of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Followed by.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention that Birdie had the most screen time.
He sure did.
I did mention that earlier, like twice now. This is the 3rd time saying it. I can't stress it enough. For some reason, they felt Birdie was very integral to the very end of that movie.
After his argument with Adon.
Yep.
Because, reasons.
And Akuma, yeah, he's in there, by the way. Did I mention that? Yeah, he's in there.
More like a cameo.
Mm-hmm.
Akuma's not represented much at all, but he is integral to the story behind the Dark Ado.
Okay. Well, I mean, to be truthfully honest, I think we've rambled on about how bad of an adaptation this film is, to be truthfully honest. Any final thoughts you want to share? As a movie, as an adaptation, how do you feel about Street Fighter Alpha the movie?
As a movie, definitely better than as an adaptation. That's hands down. it's meh as a movie. As an adaptation, garbage. Straight up, garbage.
I feel as a movie, even if it didn't have the Street Fighter name, I think it would be a really bad movie. Like, it would be one of those run-of-the-mill, like, schlock fighting movies. Like how many anime movies came out that involved tournaments? And somebody collecting, someone's power to, become stronger. There's a lot of those. I mean, hell, they made a movie about it with DBZ.
It's always about tournaments.
Mm-hmm. Somebody wanted Master Roshi's body because he was the strongest fighter in the world at one point. But yeah. Now, as an adaptation, it misses the mark, and it misses it so hard outside of, characters like Sakura and Ken. And I can't even say if they missed the mark with Akuma, because he was only in the film for maybe a minute at most. Being at the end and, just before the third act of the movie begins.
I think you're right.
Like, I can't tell how well they represent him.
Yeah, because they were all 10-second cameos.
Rose, on the other hand, poorly represented. Oh. Everybody is poorly represented. Liberties were taking to extremes here. It wasn't like they took extremes with Street Fighter 2, the animated movie. And Lord knows I'm afraid to see what they do in Street Fighter Alpha Generations. No, don't. I have not seen that yet.
Oh, that's gonna be good. Oh, it's gonna be good.
Ah, well, but overall, this is a pretty bad movie. No matter what way you look at it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I want to thank you guys for tuning in for this new episode of Video Game Adaptations.
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Rolento, for joining me.
Thank you. Follow me on Twitter, Rolento13.
And you can follow me at Fight Club Hubs or my official Twitter for the GVN Official.
That's right.
That's right. And we'll catch you on the flip side. What are we going to do next time? Test your might.